Come to order, and we have the minister and senior staff here, and a lot of finance folks at the back of the room related to our study on Bill C-86, the second act to implement certain provisions of the budget tabled in Parliament on February 27, 2018, and other measures. So I think, you know, on the side, Mr. Minister, we solved all the problems with Andrew and Abba there, so, but I guess we'd better let you go ahead. Floor is yours. Welcome.
Okay, I'm trying to work out the technology. Does it go? Which way does it go? Ava's expertise is in law, but she apparently has a side in managing this stuff. Okay, works. So, Mr. Chair, I suppose I can start?
No, you just weren't listening when I said you could. You're away. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Well, thanks, first of all, for inviting me here today. I'm happy to be here for roughly the next 90 minutes or so to talk about Budget Implementation Act number 2. In particular, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chair, as well as the Vice Chairs and all the committee members for your hard work that you've done during the last round of pre-budget consultations, and of course during the review of the Budget Implementation Act. I'm looking forward to hearing your questions on this important piece of legislation, which is the next step in the government's plan to strengthen and to grow the middle class and to build an economy that works for all Canadians. The
measures found in this bill will contribute to improve opportunities for success for Canadians in the middle class and for those who are working hard to join it. These are measures that will enable everyone to contribute to the success of Canada and to take advantage of its success.
Measures included in the second Budget Implementation Act. I'd like to take a moment to highlight some of the actions that our government's already taken. Actions that, along with the hard work of Canadians, have helped to put Canada's economy in a very good place. As you may remember, it's been 3 years ago last week that the government was sworn in. Since then, we've continuously invested in Canadians, delivering on our promises, making smart investments that are helping to deliver real results for the middle class and for those Canadians that are working hard to join it. One of our very first actions was to introduce a middle-class tax cut. More than 9 million Canadians are now benefiting from that tax cut. To help Canadian families with the cost of raising children, we also introduced the Canada Child Benefit, a simpler, tax-free, and more generous benefit than the previous system of child benefits. Since its introduction in 2016, the Canada Child Benefit has helped lift more than 520,000 people out of poverty, including nearly 300,000 children across our country. To help give more Canadians a secure and dignified retirement that they've earned after a lifetime of hard work, our government worked together with the provinces and strengthened the Canada Pension Plan. And to help low-income workers to take home more money while they work, we introduced the Canada Workers Benefit, a program that will encourage more people to join and stay in the workforce and offer real help to more than 2 million Canadians who are working hard to join the middle class. We've also taken steps to support Canada's small business owners and entrepreneurs, the people who help to create the good, well-paying jobs that middle-class families rely on. This includes cutting the small business tax rate to 10% effective this past January and to 9% this coming January. The
government also reached 3 free trade agreements today. Canada is the only G7 country that has trade agreements with all members of the G7. Mr. Chair, the results of the government's investments are clear. For the past 3 years, Canadians have created more than 500,000 full-time jobs. Canada, in 2017, had the best economic growth of all G7 countries, and the Canadian economy is one of the most best performing of the G7 economies. Salaries in the country are growing. The unemployment rate is at its lowest level in 40 years. That being said, we know that there's still a lot of work to be done. Bill C-86 will enable to make us a more egalitarian country, more competitive and fairer.
Canada Workers' Benefit, or the CWB. Not only are we introducing this more generous benefit for low-income working Canadians, we're also taking further steps to ensure that more workers who are eligible for the CWB actually receive it. Budget Implementation Act No. 2, or BIA-2, allows the Canada Revenue Agency to calculate the CWB for any tax filer, even for those who've not claimed it. This means that low-income workers who are eligible to receive the CWB simply by filing their taxes will be able to do so. We expect that when you combine this increase in take-up with other program enhancement, the CWB will deliver real help to more than 2 million working Canadians starting next year. What's more, it will also help to lift about 70,000 Canadians out of poverty by the year 2020. Ensuring that the people who've earned this benefit actually receive it, we believe that that's just common sense. It's the right thing to do for the millions of low-income working Canadians who are working hard to be successful and to join the middle class. And as all of you know, promoting and advancing other measures are also critically important, and in this BIA too. Promoting and advancing gender equality is another of our government's top priorities that's demonstrated in this Act. Les Canadiennes sont parmi les plus instruites dans le monde.
Canadians are amongst the most educated people in the world, and yet there are obstacles that prevent some of them from reaching their full potential. Equality for women promotes economic growth and increases family incomes in Canada.
And has narrowed in recent years, but it remains a barrier. For every dollar per hour a man working full-time earns in Canada, a woman working full-time earns on average about 88 cents. On an annual basis, women's earnings are even lower, about 69 cents for every dollar earned by men, because they're more likely to work part-time. We know that that's not acceptable, and we're committed to doing better. That means taking real and meaningful action to help reduce the gender wage gap and to increase the participation of women in the labour force. And that's exactly what we're doing with the legislation that we're discussing today. With BIA-2, the government is introducing proactive pay equity legislation. It will require federally regulated employers with 10 employees or more to establish and maintain a pay equity plan, so that employees who are not receiving equal pay for work of equal value can finally do so. This measure will apply to 1.2 million employed Canadians, including public servants, employees of Crown corporations, and employees of federally regulated private companies such as banks, airlines, cable companies, and radio and television broadcasters. As part of the Act, we're also proposing to establish a new Pay Equity Commissioner to administer and enforce the law and to report annually back to Parliament. That said, we also know that it often takes more than equal pay to deliver equal opportunity. As one example, no matter what a parent earns, child care duties still fall disproportionately in our society to women. That's why, in BIA-2, we're also proposing a new employment insurance parental sharing benefit. This use it or lose it benefit is intended to encourage all parents, including fathers, to take some leave when welcoming a new child and to share more equally in the work of raising their children. Two-parent families who agree to share parental leave could receive an additional 5 weeks of leave, or an additional 8 weeks for parents who choose the extended parental benefits option. This will make it easier for women to return to work sooner if they so choose. It will help to address some of the patterns of discrimination that many women experience during the hiring process. And it will give both parents an opportunity to spend time with their young children, setting up patterns of more equal parenting that can last for a lifetime. The government proposes to make this measure available next March, 3 months earlier than originally planned. This earlier date would enable 24,000 more parents to benefit from the new measure. Finally, BIA2 also includes a proposal to introduce a Gender Budgeting Act. We know that budgets are about making choices with limited resources. In Budget 2018, all decisions were informed by what we call Gender-Based Analysis Plus. This allowed us to consider the different ways in which budget measures could impact Canadians based on their gender, but also on other factors. The Gender Budgeting Act is intended to make this analysis a permanent feature of the federal budget-making process. It will ensure that these important factors are taken into account when making budgetary decisions. Monsieur le Président, nous sommes...
Chair, we're determined to manage the economy responsibly, sustainably, and competitively. We want to protect the environment and reduce carbon emissions. According to forecasts, climate change will cost $5 billion per year to our economy between now and 2020. Canada must absolutely reduce its greenhouse gas emissions, and the best way to do so is to set a price on pollution. It's been proven that with these measures, Canadians and businesses can invest in clean technologies.
The federal government has worked with its provincial and territorial partners on a plan to grow the economy while reducing Canada's greenhouse gas emissions. Provinces and territories had a range of options. They could either design or maintain their own carbon pollution pricing system that meets the federal standard, or they could voluntarily adopt the federal backstop pricing system, as Yukon and Nunavut decided to do. Now, unfortunately, some provinces have failed to recognize the cost of pollution. For that reason, 2 weeks ago, the Prime Minister announced that the gap in leadership will be filled by a federal pollution pricing system to be applied in New Brunswick, Ontario, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. All direct proceeds, and that means all direct proceeds from federal pollution pricing, will be returned to the province of origin, with the bulk of the proceeds from the fuel charge going directly to individuals and families through climate action incentive payments. The amendments proposed in BIA2 would allow for climate action incentive payments to reach individuals and families in those 4 provinces. Monsieur le Président, grâce au travail...
Chair, thanks to the hard work of Canadians, job creation is strong and the unemployment rate is low. More and more Canadians are taking advantage of the strength of the Canadian economy, but we have a lot of work to do still. BIA number 2 for 2018 will enable the government to strengthen its support of middle-class Canadians in need in order to improve their lives and that of their families. I would be pleased to answer any questions you may have, whether it be with respect to the BIA number 2, 2018, or about the supplementary estimates. Thank you very much.
Minister, and I neglected to mention in the beginning that you are here, and because it is 90 minutes on the estimates as well. So for the record, pursuant to Standing Order 815, Supplementary Estimates A, 2018-19, votes 1A and 10B under the Department of Finance referred to the committee on Wednesday, October 24th, 2018. So it is to deal with both the BIA and the estimates in this hearing today. So we'll go to, we'll have ample time to get everybody on. We'll go to 5-minute rounds across the piece in the first, or 5-minute rounds. You'll get a second shot, Peter. 5-minute rounds, and the first one up is Mr. MacLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to the Minister and his staff. Being a member of this committee, it's given us a lot of opportunity to hear voices from across the country. We've been traveling, we've had witnesses, and we've heard a lot of issues raised, a lot of concerns brought forward. And as a member of Parliament that represents a jurisdiction that has a large Indigenous population, over half of my riding is Indigenous, I was really impressed by the number of Indigenous people that have appeared in front of us and talked to us about their concerns and reminded us of a number of things. I think there's a real sense of opportunity out there after many, many years of not moving on a lot of the issues that were facing us. And some of the things that were reminded us about is that we need to create the mechanisms to allow Indigenous people to be self-governing. And we need transformative change. We need to stop fighting in the courts. And I think for the most part we've done that. And they were also there to remind us that Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people are in this together. And I think that message is one that we hear at all venues that we attend where there's Aboriginal people. So I was really pleased to see that this bill made several amendments that will improve the fiscal capacity of First Nations people on reserve. However, as you know, the North in the North, our Indigenous people are structured a little differently, and these changes might not be directly applicable to them. So I wanted to ask you if you could speak about how Bill C-86 will enhance economic reconciliation. And as we talk about reconciliation, we always hear, and it is very clear that there can be no reconciliation without economic reconciliation. So I'd like to ask you if you could talk a little bit about the next steps that the government will take to ensure that all Indigenous communities, including the ones in my riding, all Indigenous communities from coast to coast to coast can strengthen their fiscal management systems. And I think there's been a lot of work done on this area in the last while.
Well, thank you. Maybe what I could do is address broadly the things that we've done, some of the direction that we have, and then if you'd like more specifics around the First Nations Fiscal Management Act, we can go through those as well. I think the appropriate way to think about this question is to put it in the context of our government's direction and what we're trying to do in terms of our overall dealing with Indigenous peoples, and that's First Nations, Inuit, Métis Nation across the country, including in the North. Our goal, of course, is to both deal with more immediate and pressing challenges that we must get at, things that are just unacceptable in this day and age, challenges around clean water, infrastructure, education that exist in parts of our country that are frankly unacceptable, but also to make sure that we get to fiscal arrangements that allow for longer-term self-government in places where that can and should go forward. So that's the broader agenda. Much of what you've seen us work on, of course, in the first two budgets, in Budget 2016 and 2017, was identifying funding for dealing with those immediate and critical issues. We don't want to have another generation of people that don't find themselves with the opportunities that they should have in a country as rich and successful as Canada. So what I've been working on during the course of the time, together with my colleagues, has been to think about those longer-term institutions, how we can actually get at better fiscal management for the long term. And that means both thinking about what we do in terms of legislative priorities and also in terms of practices. So in terms of the practices that we've taken on in terms of our budget approach, and this budget was no different, and certainly I'm already started it in Budget 2019, is to actually get together with First Nations in advance of considering what we would be putting in a budget to make sure that we understand and consider the important imperatives, both short-term and long-term, for Indigenous peoples. As recently as yesterday, I was meeting with Inuit leaders to talk about their budget priorities for 2019. So this is an ongoing and important issue. I recognize that the issues in the North are not all exactly the same, given the different governance and leadership structures, and that is something, as you know, that we're trying to work towards making an important difference and thinking about how best to get funding to places where the funding goes through the provincial governments as opposed to directly through the First Nations groups. So that, I think, is work that we need to continue working on. In terms of the First Nations Fiscal Management Act in this budget, we think it's something that will enable us to continue moving forward on our process for enabling self-government. And I'd be happy to hear your views on that, either here or outside the room, to make sure we're making progress that we're trying to achieve.
I'm sorry, we're well ahead of time. I think I can give you a quick question and a quick answer, and we'll go to 7 minutes in the first round because we've got 90 minutes with the minister. So you want a quick question and quick answer, we're away.
Okay. Earlier today, Minister Duclos tabled Bill C-87, an act respecting the reduction of poverty. As this act is enacted through Division 21, Part 4 of this Budget Implementation Act, I want to know how it builds upon the actions that this government's already taken to address this critical issue, something that's really important in my riding, but right across the country.
Can we go to that? So the key measure that was introduced this morning, and one thing that we want to make sure that we have embedded into our overall goals around poverty reduction, is to ensure that we actually have targets that we've embedded into law, so that we can move forward in a way that will ensure that we actually have something to try to achieve, and we have measures that we can actually use to try and get there. So the approach and the goal is to get to a 20% reduction in poverty as defined by 2020 and 50% by 2030. The description of those poverty measures are really descriptions around what we would expect people should be able to have to meet up to standards acceptable to Canadians in terms of being able to live at a reasonable approach in terms of having basic needs fulfilled. And that's something that we think is important for us as we continue on our efforts to alleviate poverty.
Thank you. Thank you both. Mr. Poilievre, 7 minutes.
Minister, you announced new tax penalties on small businesses that have passive income of over $50,000 a year last fall. And when you made that announcement, you reassured those businesses that that their existing savings and investment income from those savings would be grandfathered and therefore not affected by the new rules. Let me quote, "I want to reassure everyone that our proposed changes would only apply on a go-forward basis, not to existing savings, nor to the investment income from those savings." Yes or no question. Did you keep your promise to grandfather the pre-existing savings and income from those savings of small business in your tax changes?
So, Mr. Chair, I have the same amount.
Likely to go to yes or no questions in this forum, Mr. Poilievre. The minister has the floor for an equal amount of time. Go ahead, Minister.
What we moved forward with was a measure that recognizes the important savings that small business owners might have in their corporations, and found a way to assure that for those small business owners that they would be at the small business tax rate up to the time at which they hit $1 million approximately in savings, and then they would move
Does
to
that
the
grandfather existing savings?
Mr. Poilievre, let the minister answer. You get 7 minutes, and there's 2 other rounds. So
and that moves to the large business tax rate, still a tax advantage rate, progressively up to about $3 million in savings, enabling for small business owners to not only have money to invest in their business, but to the extent that for some of them they were using it for retirement vehicle, protects them for that.
Mr. Chair,
in that regard.
forgive me, but the minister is using my time. He already had a chance to give a speech. He promised that his proposed changes would only apply on a, quote, go-forward basis, not to existing savings, nor to investment income from those savings. Simple question. Did the minister keep that promise? Yes or no?
So as I mentioned, the measures that were introduced are, of course, on a go-forward basis, and
do they apply to the investment income from pre-existing savings?
We've got lots of time. We can go through this without interruptions. The minister has the floor. You'll both get equal time. I'm watching the time, Mr. Minister.
And what we will do, and as we enact this, is make sure that those savings are protected. And as people move past that $1 million of savings in their private vehicle, up to the $3 million, they will be gradually moved into the larger business tax rate, a continuing preferential tax rate.
Okay, so you have a factual error in your answer used multiple times. The number that's in the legislation you introduced is not $1 million, it's $50,000. So just I'd urge you to read your own legislation. Secondly, you said that income from pre-existing savings would be grandfathered, that it would not count towards this new tax penalty. I'm simply asking you whether or not you kept that promise. Yes or no? Is it grandfathered?
The proxy of using the amount of investment, of course, is to use a shorthand that would require a little bit of math. So in using the math, you're correct that the $50,000 intended to show a 5% rate of return on $1 million, and $150,000 would be intended to show the rate of return on $3 million.
Right.
So really what we're trying to do is make sure that that preferential small business tax rate is available for businesses to reinvest in their business. Should they require leaving money in their business up to $1 million, that money can be left in at the small business preferential tax rate.
Again, sure.
And above that amount, up to roughly the $3 million amount, there will be a movement from the small business tax rate to the large business tax rate. An approach that we think allows people to continue investing at a very, very low tax rate. Of course, the small business tax rate is the lowest among G7 countries. And
so
continue to invest as a larger business at
Minister,
preferential tax rate.
Simple question. Is existing savings and the income from those savings excluded from the changes that you brought in to the small business tax rate? Yes or no?
Again, what I think is important to remind ourselves is we have in Canada a highly preferential small business tax rate. We've done this for a good reason, so that small businesses can reinvest in their business, and we've enabled for people to continue to park money in those companies in case they need to make those investments in future, or in the case of people that might need to take time off, whether for maternity leave or other reasons.
So I asked a very short question, Mr. Chair. If I could go back I'll ask it differently, because the minister's department posted these words on its website. They remain there. All past investments.
I'm going to let the minister finish his answer. He is a little over time, but I don't think we need to interrupt when we get lots of time. And then you can go to your other question. If you're over your 7 minutes, we'll allow it. Go ahead, Minister.
Again, Mr. Chair, just really for all of us, reminding ourselves that we have a tax system that provides a very favorable situation for small business owners in this country, with the lowest small business rates among G7 countries, significantly lower than other countries. And we do allow for businesses not to have to immediately reinvest all of their profits, but to leave some profits in the business for potential future investments or other reasons. That's why the approach that we've taken gives people that $1 million.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Minister, point of order.
I asked a very short question. I think it was less than 10 seconds. You've now given him a minute of my time.
Go ahead.
I asked that time be given back to me. I'm going to read a quote here. All past investments and the income earned from those investments will be protected. That's what the Finance Department website says right now. People have to make decisions and have to file their taxes based on these rules. That's what your website says. I quoted earlier what you said to the Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada, who actually have to prepare the taxes. They would expect you to actually know what your own policy is. This is actually a yes or no question. Either savings that were accumulated before the changes came into effect are grandfathered and therefore have no impact on the business's access to the small business tax deduction, or not. It is a yes or no. So you promised that savings that were previously existing before your changes came into effect would be grandfathered. Were they? Yes or no?
Mr. Minister, and we're well over time. I said I'd give you ample time, and I'll give the Minister ample time to answer the question how he sees fit, Mr. Minister. And then we'll move to you, Mr. Julian.
Again, pleased to describe the approach we've taken. Really, we see the importance for businesses to have the ability to maintain income in their
It's a yes or no question.
Poilievre, it'll be
a yes or no question.
The question will be
You said he would have
answered-
to answer the question.
And
you said, Chair, that he would answer the question.
And he is.
That was your commitment. He hasn't answered the
Out of
question.
order, Mr. Poilievre.
He
Mr.
hasn't
Minister,
answered the
you have the
question.
floor.
He has not answered the
Shut
question.
off his mic.
It's a yes or a no.
Shut off his mic.
It's a yes or
Mr.
no.
Minister, you have the floor.
I think I've made my point. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you both. Mr. Julian, 7 minutes. Yeah.
Before we move to the next round, I've observed the time during Mr. Poilievre's opportunity to have an intervention here. I've served as a member of Parliament 10 years. I've served on a number of committees. I have great respect for you, Mr. Chair. However, I would ask that you give us a bit more clear of a ruling on this. And it's based on this. The committees I've sat on in the past, generally, what I've seen the chair do is exercise the prerogative of the person with the time, the member, to use that time as they wish. If they feel that they need to move to an answer because a witness is taking too long, those kinds of things, they are able to do just that. I've always seen that. That's been the practice I've seen through 10 years in a number of different committees. So what I would ask, Mr. Chair, is I understand what you've indicated you believe the ruling should be, but could you please provide us with some documentation from Bosch and O'Brien or from somewhere that would indicate why that ruling is being done, because it certainly differs from the convention I've seen in every other committee that I've sat on.
The way we have tended to operate in this committee, we give equal time to the questioner and the answer. And in the fullness of time, I've felt a little leeway sometimes to the questioner and sometimes to the witness to give a little more answer, so you have a fullness of an answer.
On the same point, actually, Chair, on the same point, you did not give equal time. I asked short, pointed questions, to which the minister responded by giving speeches on unrelated matters, and you allowed him to go on much longer than my question. So that is not how these proceedings are supposed to go. We are allowed to ask questions and demand answers from ministers. That's what this place is for.
And I think we tried to get them. Can we move on, or do you all want to waste time here so that
you're not the minister's bodyguard?
I am not the minister's bodyguard. Never have operated that way, and never will. Mr. Julian, the floor is yours.
And it's true.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Morneau. I just came from a speaker's ruling in the House of Commons where the speaker agreed with my contention that this massive omnibus legislation was an omnibus bill and needed to be divided for the purposes of voting. And so this flies really in the face of the commitments made by the Prime Minister in the last election campaign when he said that omnibus legislation of this type was undemocratic and didn't allow for proper examination. And he promised to end the practice. And so I wanted to make that comment to start, that the idea that omnibus legislation is acceptable is simply wrong. And I think the fact that the Speaker has agreed and is dividing the bill for the purposes of votes indicates that there is far too much dumped in this one piece of legislation for proper scrutiny. Now, we've only had a few hours of parliamentary witnesses, and so far they have indicated grave concerns with the pay equity provisions that you commented on in your initial statement. The pay equity provisions are unconstitutional according to pay equity advocates. They offer less protection for women who are in precarious work situations such as part-time or temporary work. And so they are advocating for immediate amendments so that the botched job that is the pay equity legislation within this massive budget bill can be addressed. My question is very simple. Why weren't the pay equity advocates heeded when they raised concerns about this bill? Why has the government refused to incorporate what are deep considerations in the flaws in the bill so that the bill can actually do what it is purported to do?
Well, thank you for that question. I guess there's two separate things brought up during the course of that comment and question. In the first instance, we did make a commitment that we would put forth budget implementation acts that only contained measures that were in our budget or in budgets. And that approach, which we committed to taking, has been followed. And that has been followed including in this particular example of Budget Implementation Act number 2. I recognize the Speaker's decision that this Budget Implementation Act will be split into 3 from a vote standpoint, and I respect his decision. We'll look forward to that process. We will continue to move forward with our ambitious agenda to ensure that we bring our economy to a place that will help middle-class Canadians and prepare ourselves for the future. With respect to the approach to pay equity, we brought forward this approach after extensive consultations and deliberation. We think it's critically important that we move forward with this legislation, which will, of course, put proactive pay equity legislation in place in the federally regulated sector. That will have an impact, as mentioned in my speech, on up to 1.2 million people. We think it's high time to move forward with this, and the approach we know will have an important impact on women today and for future generations of women.
Well, I think the point is that we have pay equity advocates that are now saying that this bill, as it is currently worded, provides less protection than what currently exists, and that women will have to go back to court to fight for their rights again, which means that it's a government betrayal of the commitments made around pay equity. I think it is important to stress that these are numerous voices in the scant few hours of testimony that we've had so far. And because the government is invoking a bulldozer trying to ram this through, the fact that there are deep flaws in the legislation, I would hope would give the government pause to step back and not ram through the legislation, but actually work with pay equity advocates and with civil society and with opposition members so that we can actually get it right. And I'll come back to that in a moment, because not getting it right means prolonging the crisis that exists in inequality in this country. Another component of Bill 86 is parental leave, the parental leave provisions. And we heard this morning that now 1/3 of all families that are those who should most benefit from the benefits that were put into the budget bill will actually not receive them, because the criteria that are set up around the parental leave benefits don't allow them to access them. Are you concerned by the fact that 1/3, the poorest families, can't receive the parental leave benefits that are in the bill? And will you seek to address that and make changes to the bill so that they can be included?
Mr. Minister.
Both in this measure and on an ongoing basis, our government's been very focused on how we can ensure that that all Canadians can have access to the programs that we put in place. So that's critically important for the parental leave benefit. It we know is an approach that we've taken that's going to make an enormous difference. and especially clear that it will make a difference on long-term workforce participation among women, as the similar measure has had that impact in Quebec. We've taken other measures that demonstrate our keen interest in ensuring that all Canadians can have access to benefits they should have access to. In this Budget Implementation Act, with respect to the Canada Workers Benefit, we've made it such that workers automatically get access to that benefit and don't do it on demand. It was presenting a challenge for access to that benefit. So we have demonstrated our continuing focus on this issue. We believe that the parental leave approach we've taken in this budget will have a big impact, positive impact on women and on families, and so are very pleased with where we've gotten to.
I haven't
Fairly,
heard
quick,
anywhere you addressing the flaws in the bill and a willingness to actually work with other people so that we can address the flaws.
Minister?
Again, we've gone through extensive deliberations and consultations to get to an approach that we think will have an important and very material impact on workforce participation and on better outcomes for women.
Thank you both. Ms. Rudd, still in 7-minute rounds.
Are we still in 7-minute rounds?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, Minister. And as I was reading both the budget bill and the BIA, as I was looking through it, I recognized a number of things there that I brought to your attention, and I know other members had as well, that we'd heard from our constituents about recommendations to address some of their challenges. So I want to say I appreciate that that we were listened to, that the suggestions were implemented as a recognition of the reality, shall we say, of our constituents in our riding. I want to talk about a particular element within the BIA, and just to give you a little bit of background. So my riding of Northumberland Peterborough South, which I know you know where it is a rural riding. Interesting statistic, over 40% of my constituents are over the age of 55. So things that impact seniors are very relevant to my riding. And we've done a number of things that certainly have been beneficial. The increase in the guaranteed income supplement for the most vulnerable single seniors, certainly, and programs such as New Horizons. And while those programs aren't huge amounts of money, in rural ridings particularly, they make a big difference. So they have made a big difference in my riding. One of the other things that that's in the BIA that I want to particularly talk about is the strengthening and creating a more robust banking consumer protection framework under the auspices of the FCAC, or the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, not to use acronyms. This is particularly important for Canadians, but Canadian seniors as well. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what measures have been undertaken so far, and where you see them having an impact, and particularly for seniors, but certainly for Canadians writ large. Thank you.
Do you have chapter Well, first of all, thank you for the question. And I think what you're identifying for seniors and for all citizens in your riding, and for that matter across the country, is the importance of having appropriate consumer protections, especially in the banking sector, given that for many people that is a difficult system to navigate, and people, especially people that are not familiar with it, can find themselves vulnerable. So for that reason, we wanted to increase the protections from the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, and have been working on this, as you know, for a while. As part of it, we were clear that we wanted to recognize that we weren't asserting federal primacy in this area, that there were other jurisdictional issues that we needed to respect, but that it's critically important for us to get at this in a way that has a long-term impact. We do think that, again, specifically against seniors, that there's an issue that we need to stay on top of. So I've asked Ava if she might go over some of the specifics around what we have in that part of our bill.
Certainly. So the amendments to the Bank Act and the Financial Consumers Agency of Canada Act, the idea behind them is to advance consumer rights and interests when dealing with their banks. In that vein, it has a number of very specific amendments to make sure that the banks take greater responsibility for their interactions with consumers. And what it does is, one, it advances a naming and shaming sort of a concept where you amend the Act to require names be made public. This was not the case in the past over many, many years. It has substantially increased the fine levels from up to $500,000 to up to $10 million. When banks are being closed in small areas, there's a detailed notification procedure that must be followed, including 6 months' notice, where there are no other branches within 10 kilometers, a notice to various parties. There's also the important concept of whistleblower protection, where you have to report to proper authorities who must keep employees' identities confidential, and there must be systems put in place at the banks to take care of this. And then, of course, there's dealing with sales tactics. The bank must implement a policy and procedures to ensure products and services that it sells are appropriate for the consumers that it is serving, and the employee compensation of the bank should be set so that it does not interfere with such an approach. In addition, one other thing that's there is that the bank can't provide product or services without the consent of the customer. You can't just impose. So those are a number of the amendments that are being made.
Thank you very much, and I have 2 minutes. So you mentioned the Canada Workers Benefit, and it currently benefits, I believe, around 1.4 million low-income working Canadians, and in 2019, it's being enhanced by $500 million. Through the process, you're also working with provinces and territories to ensure that there is a harmonization with their programs so that low-income Canadians are always assured that they're getting as much as they're entitled to, as well as the auto-enrollment, which you mentioned a moment ago, which I think is extremely important. We saw that with seniors, where the enrollment became automatic. Significantly more seniors were getting a benefit that they had been entitled to and not receiving. So my question is, if you can just quickly speak to these enhancements in what I think is a critical program for Canadians, and your thoughts behind why this enhancement is so crucial to many low-income working Canadians.
Thank you for the question. We see this as a really important benefit, one that had already been in place in some measure before we came into office, but one that we felt needed to be enhanced. So effectively, what does it do? It helps people move from social assistance into work and provides the bridge so that they don't have a situation where there's no benefit from going to work. Because they're not earning more than they would earn on an after-tax basis as they would have prior to their new job. So what we've done is we've added some funds to this to enable it to start at a lower income level, so that we start people at an earlier income level, and so they can get more money through this program, so that they are more better off as they have their transition into work. We think that this is going to help a significantly larger number of low-income people to get off social assistance and into some form of work. That was a critical part of what we did, but as you mentioned, there are many people, especially people who might not be filing their taxes electronically, who might not have known that they were eligible for this benefit. So the idea is to ensure that CRA has the ability to automatically, if people qualify, give them the Canada Workers Benefit, which means that we have more people in that situation, triggering a much more successful movement from sort of out of work into work, and allowing people that should make use of that benefit in order to get that bridge into full-time work actually get it. So we're very pleased with that.
Minister. We'll have to leave it there. Mr. Poilievre, we're on 5-minute rounds.
You spent $4.5 billion of our money to buy a $2 billion pipeline under the promise that it would accelerate the expansion of that pipeline. On what date will the construction of the pipeline expansion begin?
Well, thanks very much for answering this question. It's clear that we needed to move forward in a way with the Trans Mountain Pipeline and the expansion to ensure the pipeline actually gets done. That was the conclusion we got to in purchasing that pipeline. We are working through a process to make sure that that moves forward in the right way, and as we have more detailed dates, we will certainly be providing them to Canadians.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I'm just not sure where I saw that in the budget implementation bill or the main estimates. I think we're off topic here.
When we go into the estimates, it opens it up. I've provided leeway the first time. The first series of questions were on BIA 1, but I think you can fall back on the estimates, so we'll allow them general questions as a result. Mr. Poilievre.
On what date will construction begin?
As you may know, having been sitting in the House, we're going through a National Energy Board process and seek to have meaningful consultations with Indigenous peoples. The notion of having meaningful engagement and going through that process
so
means
the question was what date? Do you know the date?
I'm happy to respond to the question in a reasonable way if you'd like to hear the answer.
Again, I had a 5-second question that required a 1-second answer. You still haven't answered it. The question is, on what date will construction begin on the project?
If you're not interested in knowing, then that's okay.
I am.
What we're doing is we're going through a National Energy Board process in order to ensure that we deal with the issues brought forth by the Federal Court of Appeal. Specifically, there were issues brought forth around whether the consideration of the West Coast
so
issues around Species at Risk
appear to have an
Act was
answer to
dealt
that
with.
question, Mr. Chair, and he's now spoken much longer than my question. So I'll move on to my next question then.
But I'm going to say here, Mr. Poilievre, we can get down to 5-second questions and so on. I see the purpose of a hearing is to get the best legitimate answers you can get, and let's try and proceed in that way.
Then that's what I'm doing. We're not getting any answers so far.
So the floor is yours. Go ahead.
So the next question, I've been asked, this minister promised the construction would start in time for the last construction season. We're almost into winter time now, and there's still no construction. So for the last time, when will construction begin on this project? On what date?
I was walking through the process that we were going through with the National Energy Board, and then was going to talk about the importance of having meaningful engagement with Indigenous peoples, both things that the Federal Court of Appeal asked us to do. We're working on those, and we are aiming to have those processes proceed in a way that will ensure that we meet up to the court's direction, and at that stage we'll have more information.
So you have indicated we're going to have to spend more tax dollars to actually build the expansion. How much more will the expansion cost taxpayers? How much?
The current process, of course, is the enabling process to get to the expansion. So as we get there, we'll have more information on the exact numbers.
You don't know?
We did extensive
Do you
review.
know?
The minister is answering the question. Go ahead,
It doesn't look like it to me, but go ahead.
We did extensive review of the both operating costs and the costs for the building of the pipeline expansion in order to get to the appropriate purchase price.
Okay, so you did extensive review. Thank you for sharing that. And what did that review show the construction would cost?
The review showed, of course, that the construction costs that had been previously outlined by the pipeline proponent were entirely reasonable from the standpoint of any price that we would pay, and that this was an economic project from Canadian taxpayers' standpoint.
You put $4.5 billion in the line to nationalize a pipeline, and you can't even tell us how much more Canadian tax dollars are going to have to be poured into this project. I would think that you would have calculated this number before putting this amount of Canadian tax money on the line. So I'm going to give you one more chance for Canadians whose money is at stake here to reassure them that you actually did your math before you put their money on the line. How much will the expansion cost Canadian taxpayers? How much?
Minister, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for the question. In deciding to go forward with this project, we recognized that it was not only economically good for our country, allowing us to get resources to international markets, but also the project itself was economically feasible. We took a look at the current pipeline dynamics, of course, the economics to get to the price, and also the projected cost of the pipeline development. As we move through the process and get to the next iteration of the development costs, we'll be transparent about those with Canadians.
Thank you both. Mr. Sabara, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Minister. Minister, I've had the privilege of serving on this committee since we were first elected as a government, and during that time, the results that we've achieved as a government have been very impressive for our economy, and you went through those results at the beginning, so I'm not going to repeat that. One of the things that under your leadership that we achieved was we enhanced the CPP, coming to an agreement with all the provinces. Subsequent to that, you also came to an agreement with the provinces in December of 2017 on corporate beneficial ownership and some strides there. And with that, to reassure Canadians that tax fairness is a paramount tenet of our government, a paramount pillar. In the BIA legislation, there are a number of actions that are listed with regards to tax fairness, and I wanted to get some color from you on which ones that you feel are the most important and the strides we've achieved for tax fairness, so Canadians can be assured that all Canadian organizations and high net worth individuals are paying their fair share.
Well, thank you for that question. I think our efforts in ensuring that our tax system is working are both important within Canada and as we govern how Canadian organizations and individuals potentially invest abroad. So maybe I'll take that second part first. Two very important measures that we've worked together with the international community on have been what's called the Base Erosion Profit Shifting, BEPS project, and the Common Reporting Standard. And they're both quite important. Common Reporting Standard allows us to get access to know what bank accounts are held in other jurisdictions, so we can get a good understanding of whether any organizations are moving money into other jurisdictions. And the base erosion profit shifting is really working together with other countries to make sure that companies don't move profits to places where taxes are low and move expenses to places where taxes are high, obviously eroding the tax base. That's important internationally. Nationally, as we've heard earlier in this hearing here today, we've been focused on making sure our tax system works to benefit all Canadians. First and foremost, we lowered taxes on middle-class Canadians. So we took the tax bracket between $45,000 and $90,000 and moved it from a 22% tax bracket to a 20.5% tax bracket, reducing taxes in that bracket for 7%. That by 7%. What that did is it lowered taxes not only for people in that tax bracket, but right up to and including everybody up to roughly about $200,000 or so when they got into the new tax bracket that we introduced that was eligible only for the wealthiest of Canadians. We also then, as you heard, we looked at small business taxes, lowered them, but at the same time put in measures to make sure that people are reinvesting into their business.
Okay. Thank you, Minister. And I know we could list probably another 15 items or so that we've done to the benefit of millions of Canadians, including those that live in my riding of Vaughan Woodbridge. This committee earlier this year undertook a study of bank sales practices. The FCAC came out with a report. We followed up with some measures in the BIA here with regards to that Canadians can feel safe and feel, when they walk into a bank or financial institution, that their best interests will always be served, if I can use just very simple terms. And I was wondering what would you like to say to the Canadians sitting at home watching on TV, watching this committee, about what we've done to ensure that when they walk into a bank that they know that their best interests are being served?
I think we can't emphasize this issue enough. There are, of course, Canadians who feel vulnerable in their dealing with large institutions because there's an information asymmetry. So that's why we wanted to make sure that the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada has the ability to properly regulate and ensure that banks are following practices that protect individuals. I know that my Associate Deputy Minister, Ava, went through some of those in the last few minutes. What I want people to know, though, is that we will continue to assure that products and services delivered by banks are done so in a way that gives full disclosure to consumers. Our banking sector is strong. We don't think that there are concerns, but we always need to be vigilant to make sure that people are protected.
Sorry, Mr. Severa, you run down the clock. Mr. Poilievre, 5 minutes, and on my list, we'll get everybody on. Mr. Poilievre first, Mr. Fragaskatis, Mr. Julian, and Mr. Fergus. Go ahead.
Will the HST apply on the carbon tax?
We, I guess, have a couple of really important ways of looking at the new pollution pricing. Firstly, and most importantly, we've said that all of the revenues from pollution pricing will be returned to the provinces. 90% of it will go to individuals. Our estimation is that there will be no material change in GST receipts for the federal government.
So how much will the average family pay in HST on the carbon tax itself?
To be clear, we've said that we are giving, for those people in the backstop provinces, Ontario, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and New Brunswick, we will be giving a climate action incentive, a rebate to families.
And I'm trying to find out where that will leave families, because there's the tax itself, which you admit will cost almost $600 for an Ontario family. Does that roughly $600 include HST on the tax?
To be clear, your numbers are incorrect. So
they're your numbers, not mine.
Those aren't my numbers. There are different numbers in each province. So in each one of the 4 backstop provinces, there are different numbers because the impact is different by province. And we've committed to giving the revenues received back to provinces. Okay. Of course, our expenditures on environmental initiatives are significantly greater than that because, of course, on top of that, we've put in place the Low Carbon Economy Fund and significant
The question was whether the HST would apply on the carbon tax. You didn't answer that. And then I asked what the average family would pay in HST on the tax, and you've still not answered that. You're talking about some unrelated government spending program. How much will the average family in, say, Ontario, spend in HST on the carbon tax? How much?
On with your previous answer there, Mr. Minister.
Your question, of course, is a hypothetical. So what we can identify is that we will be putting a price on pollution.
Is the carbon tax hypothetical now? You're not going ahead with it, or?
Pierre, Mr. Poilievre, allow the minister
we will be
his time.
putting a price on pollution, and the decisions by each individual family and what they're going to do with the rebate is their individual decision. Our expectation, based on our modeling, is that businesses, of course, which have input tax credits will not have any net increase in GST, HST. And of course, families may decide to use that money to save. They may decide to put the money that we're giving them on basic goods like groceries, which have no GST, HST. So it's a hypothetical that's, impossible to answer, but on our modeling, first of all, people are going to have more money.
I asked a very simple and very short question, and now he gives you're allowing him to restate his speech from the beginning of the committee proceeding. The question was how much HST people would pay on the carbon tax. Surely your Department of Finance has the capacity to do these kinds of calculations. You've tried to convince people that they'll get as much back as they pay in, but you won't even tell us whether or not your calculations include the HST on the carbon tax itself. So I'm just asking a simple question. How much HST will the average family pay on the carbon tax? How much?
Where's yours, Minister?
As I said, in the 4 provinces in which the backstop will apply, we've taken a look at the pollution pricing in order to give a rebate back to families, which is for the overwhelming majority of families in excess of any pollution pricing. Of course,
does that include the HST on the tax?
Of course, on top of that, there will be the decision on what they will take with the rebates, which could find themselves even in a better situation.
So, Mr. Chair, the reason this is important is because the government is applying a tax. It will raise the price of gas, home heating, indirectly goods like groceries, furniture, and clothing will all go up. They've admitted that. They have tables which show the cost to the average family. Now, on the carbon tax itself, people will also pay the HST. I'm simply trying to ascertain how much they will pay in HST on top of the carbon tax to see the impact on family household budgets. It's a simple question for which you must have the answer. You've been the minister now for 3 years. You have one of the most advanced finance departments in the world capable of conducting these calculations. Why not just open up and tell the truth? How much in HST will the average family pay on the carbon tax itself? What's the tax on the tax?
Peter, you're next.
We did modeling, of course, with this to assure ourselves that, in fact, we did not see any material increase in GST coming to the federal government.
Okay, thank you both. Mr. Fragascatis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being here. Thank you for the work that you're doing. 19,000 children in the riding of London North Central, which I represent in the House of Commons, have benefited from the CCB. So that is tremendously, obviously, important in a community that has struggled economically from 2008, but is now pivoting. And that's, this very program is putting money into pockets of hardworking parents so they can go and spend, and we're seeing tremendous growth in London. The lowest unemployment rate now at under 5% in London that we've seen since 2004. Our government isn't completely responsible for that, but when people have greater purchasing power, I think it speaks volumes. I do want to ask you something different, though. I want to shift from the CCB and talk about the environment. On matters of national priority, I don't think there should be room for partisanship. We've heard my friend today engage in a very partisan attack. My interest here is to get down to the facts and to understand issues of national priority from that perspective. When it comes to the environment, I want to read a quote here. It comes from Preston Manning, so that's how nonpartisan I am being. Conservation, he says, conservation and conservative come from the same root. You can't demand more out of natural systems than you are prepared to put into sustaining them. And so I argue with conservatives, let's extend the concept of living within our means financially to living within our means ecologically. He continues by saying, conservatives profess to believe in markets, so why don't conservatives major on how to harness markets to the environmental conversation and make that their signature contribution? So all of that says to me that there is room for a reasonable dialogue between all parties on this issue. Can you, and you alluded to this today in your opening remarks, you've spoken about it before, but can you touch on how our government's move towards putting a price on pollution actually rests on free market principles?
Well, I think it's a really great question for us to consider here, because Canadians need to know what it is that we're trying to achieve. A few weeks ago, William Nordhaus, a leading economist, won the Nobel Prize for Economics based on his work around the need to price pollution, the need for us to put a price on pollution in order to actually use a market-based mechanism to reduce the amount of pollution. This is not a novel economic concept. This is a broadly accepted economic concept. It's not a partisan concept. It's people understand that when you put a price on something, that you actually have an impact. So we put a price on something that we don't want. Pollution is something that we don't want, and we deal with it in a way that allows people to make their own choices. So we give people the money from which they can make their own choices on how to best satisfy their family goals and demands. So that is exactly what we're trying to do here. in my estimation, the people who are arguing about this, they either don't believe in climate change or they don't care. It's really, those are one of the two options. So we believe in climate change and we care about climate change, and that means we're going to take the most economically efficient way to deal with the long-term impact of climate change, and that's by putting a price on pollution. That's what we're trying to achieve here. The minor squabbles from people who are trying to serve themselves with political points. Over the long term, I think what Canadians see is we're actually trying to make a difference for us today, for our children, and for our grandchildren by actually having a material impact on our environment.
Well, when Preston Manning agrees with the rationale of our policy, I think it speaks volumes about our direction, quite frankly. There's a minute left in my questioning here, so I do want to ask you about pay equity. We've been talking about doing something for decades. This is the most meaningful piece of legislation that's come forward. My friend across talks about constitutionality. You should know, Minister, that is based on witness testimony from this morning from one group, which I won't speak for my colleagues, but I found to be very incoherent. I wasn't sure where the witnesses were going when they talked about the unconstitutionality of the legislation. I think it's quite constitutional, and I don't think my friend has done an analysis in the past few hours to determine whether it is constitutional. Could you touch on, though, and you pointed to this at the outset, but talk about pay equity as actually benefiting the economy, not only being the right thing to do in a very abstract sense, but the right thing to do if we're trying to generate further economic growth.
Well, let me first just say that I wasn't in the meeting this morning, so I don't have an ability to respond to that. I do think that having a pay equity approach that's not based on people having to complain, but it's actually proactive and gets people to come to these conclusions for the long-term benefit of their organization and for our broader economy is critically important. The economic benefits seem to me pretty straightforward. I mean, if you believe that people take jobs in order to make money, and you believe that people take jobs if they can earn more money more readily, then you believe that the market incentive works. We don't think that the idea that women don't earn as much gives them the same incentives to want to be successful in our economy. Simple as that. So we want women to be successful. We want our economy to be successful. Having them paid for the work in an appropriate way it doesn't even seem to me to be a question that in 2018 we should be debating.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Mr. Julian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to take just a few seconds to reply to my colleague across the way. 4 groups endorsed the findings of the Pay Equity Coalition this morning. All of them pointed to the fact that eliminating from human rights legislation actually meant that women would have to go back to court to challenge the pay equity legislation and have their rights reestablished. That is what testimony came, Mr. Chair. My colleague wants to interrupt me, but when you have 4 groups, that's a third of all witnesses in the short time that we've heard from witnesses, all saying the same thing. I think it's beholden on the government members actually to listen to what they're saying. Now, that being said, I will go back to the Minister and start off with the issue of the pipeline, because Mr. Poilievre raised it, but he's not the only one asking about this. You must have a range and the actual cost, what this will cost Canadian taxpayers for the building of the pipeline, particularly in light of all of the changed circumstances. What is that range?
The most recent estimates for the building of the pipeline were those done by the proponent. It's an extensive process to redo those pipeline building estimates. We, in our analysis, of course, looked at a range of possibilities, but the only number that's been developed was the one developed by the pipeline proponent prior to the purchase.
We've heard estimates of $11 to $15 billion, depending on who is doing the estimate. You have internally estimates that have been developed to the ministry. There's no doubt about that. What do those estimates say?
No, you're incorrect. We have the estimate done by the proponent prior to the purchase. The estimates that you're talking about, I have no idea what you're referring to, because the only ability to go forward and come to a new estimate would be by the organization Trans Mountain Pipeline, and that work has not been done.
I will move on. I note your non-answer, and I find it quite concerning, but I will move on to a number of other questions because I only have a couple of minutes left. First, turning to supplementary estimates A, what is the total cost across all ministries of funding related to government advertising programs? And perhaps I can give you questions 2 and questions 3 as well, and give you the time. I know you have your colleagues there from the Finance Ministry, so that will give you the opportunity to look. So first, the total value of government advertising in Sup A right across all ministries. Second, expenses related to the Phoenix Pay System, getting the Phoenix Pay System to work somewhat adequately. Our public servants are being treated in an abominable way with the Phoenix Pay System's malfunctions. How much in the Sup A's are there expenses related to Phoenix Pay System and correcting that? And then thirdly, what is the write-down for the summit on the G7? We heard about the over 600 automobiles that were purchased new by this government for the summit. They are now attempting to be sold, and there's some difficulty, of course, in selling that many vehicles. The Ministry of Finance must have an estimate of what the write-down is. Some of these vehicles have traveled 40 kilometers, and that's it. So there's a huge write-down to Canadian taxpayers. How much is the value of the write-down for the summit?
Sorry. Well, first of all, I think all of these are from the main estimates and not from the departmental estimates. So we would be happy to get back to you with responses on these issues. They aren't from the departmental estimates.
You would know about the summit, and you would know about the write-down there. This is something that's put out in the public domain.
Again, we're happy to get back to you. I don't think it's appropriate for me to speak off the cuff on something that requires that level of detail. We're happy to get back to you.
Thank you. My final question, in the few seconds left to me, is around the family debt crisis. We have Bill C-86 that is deeply flawed. A number of witnesses have pointed to that. As I mentioned, both the parental leave provisions and the pay equity provisions, we're seeing increasing inequality. The family debt crisis is now amongst the industrialized countries the worst in Canada, and certainly it's the worst in Canadian history. How do you intend to resolve a family debt crisis if Bill C-86 can't be fixed appropriately so that the pay equity provisions actually have a positive impact on women and the parental leave provisions actually benefit all families?
There are a number of things in that comment. I'm not entirely sure I follow the argument, but what I think is appropriate for me to respond is that we are very closely monitoring the level of Canadian indebtedness. This has been an issue that we've been focused on from day one as a government. The biggest portion of that family indebtedness, of course, is typically mortgage debt. And that's something that we've looked at very carefully. We've put in place rules to protect current homeowners and protect people from taking decisions that put themselves in vulnerable positions. We are starting to see some impact that is reducing some of the significant risk, but it remains a risk. And I think you're entirely appropriate to point it out. This is something that we need to stay on top of. The reality is our economy is doing well, and as our economy does well, we're seeing that the Bank of Canada is looking at inflation currently and following through in their mandate, and most recently raised interest rates, and that is something that, while it's not in my jurisdiction to opine on, is not unlikely to happen in the future. So we need to help to prepare Canadians for that potential eventuality, which which is a risk. And we are working on that, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you both. The last round of questioning, Mr. Fergus, and then we'll have to adjourn this session. Go ahead.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président, et merci, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for testifying today. On May 14th, 2015, the Liberal leader at the time unveiled the new child tax benefit. He said that our plan is progressive. We're doing more for those who are in need, and we are doing less for those who are not in need. Canadians supported this policy and this program. We also abolished the child tax program for low-income families and the universal benefit for childcare that was developed under the Conservatives. This was a program that was paid to everyone, even millionaires. This was replaced with the new child tax benefit, which is a non-taxable monthly check. And according to my constituents and according to me, and according to the serious analysts throughout the country, this is the best social program in 50 years. So, and you proposed amendments to this program. Could you explain why you did this? First of all, I'd like to say thank you. This is a very important question. This is something that we decided was important for Canadian families. The Canadian Child Tax Benefit helps families to have more money during the most difficult years of a family's life when their children are young, and that it was important. And of course, you're quite right. The situation throughout the country is better now for families with children as a result of this program. Yes, this is a program that helps the vast majority of families, but not everyone, because the families who are wealthy are in a situation where they don't need the money. And a family such as mine, for instance, I had 2 children when I was under 18, when I began as an MP. It was important to consider who were these families who needed such a program. And that's what we did for the families in your riding, in Hull-Aylmer. It's clear the situation is much better now because there are 9,749 beneficiaries of this program, and there are 17,600 children who are now in a better situation with an average of $6,700 more for every year. So that makes a huge difference to families, and clearly for them, this is a much better situation than it used to be, and this is better for us, for the economy as a rule. And though this was a very important decision, because with more money in their pockets, families will be able to make investments for themselves, for their families, and for our economy. So it was a win-win for families and for the economy. I fully agree with what you've said, Minister. When I was doing door-to-door, especially in the neighborhoods where there are people who work very, very hard to be part of the middle class, and it makes a huge difference for their families. And it helped out a lot of families who were living beneath the poverty line. So it made a huge difference to them. My second question pertains to another social program. The Canadian workers' benefits. You introduced this program in your economic statement last fall, and in the BIA, you're suggesting that we amend the program to simplify it, to make sure that people who are in need will in fact receive these payments. Could you explain how this will work and why it's so important? And why it's so important that we help these families. Thank you. The Canadian Workers Benefit is very important for workers who earn low income. This is something that's very important. Beforehand, we improved the program to enhance the situation for people in difficult situations, but we looked at the challenges facing families that don't have automatic access to this program. So we decided that it would be important to enable the CRA to ensure that there would be automatic access for people in situations where they're entitled to have this benefit. So that's what we've done. It was a significant change, and we will now ensure that more people in Canada will have an opportunity to use this benefit or to have access to this benefit. And as we did with the child benefit, we have to look at how programs can be enhanced every year if there are any problems that crop up. And this is what we did with the child benefit, with the workers benefit, with the change in indexation that we introduced last year. And we will continue to look at ways to help middle-class families and people who are in more difficult situations.
Minister, and thank you for your 90 minutes on these issues. For committee members, thank you again, and thank you, Mr. Marsland and Ms. Yeskel as well. For committee members, there is a vote at bells at 5:53. So we are going to have to change our schedule. We do have to hear on Part 4, Division 6 from Employment and Social Development Canada, on the BIA 2 as yet, and then we need to hear from departmental officials on the Budget Implementation Act 2. So what I'd suggest, and we also as a committee, we have to deal for 15 minutes in camera on the money laundering, terrorism financing. It went to members at 11 o'clock this morning, and we want to do a quick review to make sure that is correct. So what I'm going to have to do is kick everybody out of the room except members. Thank you, Minister. And ask the witnesses from the department, Ms. Yeskel and your crew, and the people dealing with Part 4, Division Part 4, Division 16, to just wait for 10 minutes, and we'll invite you back in. So thank you all. Call the meeting to order to go through departmental witnesses on the study matter of Bill C-86, the Budget Implementation Act 2018. And with us we have the group who we didn't get time to deal with last evening, so thank you for your indulgence. Dealing with Part 4, Division 16, Wage Earner Protection Program Act, we have Ms. Baxter and Mr. Duff. The floor is yours.
Do we go ahead? Great, thank you. I'm just going to turn this over to Alex, who is the manager of the Wage Earner Protection Program Policy and Oversight, to give you the overview of the changes to the Wage Earner Protection Program.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Wage Earner Protection Program is a program that compensates workers when their employer files for bankruptcy or becomes subject to a receivership. It can make payments to workers in respect of unpaid wages, unpaid vacation pay, severance pay, or termination pay. Now, as part of the amendment, and I forgot to mention, it's Division 16, clauses 626 to 653. So the main change is an increase to the maximum payment under the program. The current maximum payment is an amount of $3,977. And the BIA changes would increase that to $6,960. And the maximum amount is pegged to the EI, Employment Insurance Maximum Weekly Insurable Earnings. So it's going from 4 weeks up to 7 weeks. And it's important to stress that that's the maximum payment, so it has to be in respect of amounts that workers were owed. It's not a benefit, it's only for wages you were owed. And that maximum payment would apply retroactively to February 27th, the date of the budget. So in addition to the increase to the maximum payment, there are also amendments to ensure that workers who work past the date of bankruptcy or receivership are still eligible for WEP in respect of severance and termination pay. Eligibility will also be expanded to cover foreign bankruptcies, as well as to make more timely payments when an employer is restructuring under the Companies Creditors Arrangement Act or under a proposal under the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act. There's also amendments to ensure a greater recovery of amounts paid out by WEP, because when a WEP payment is made, the government is subrogated to those amounts. So we step into the shoes of the worker in the insolvency process and try to recover that money back to the government. So that's an overview of the changes, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the members.
Okay, any questions to Mr. Duff or Ms. Baxter from committee members? This doesn't involve pensions, so it's just the, okay.
That's correct.
Okay. No questions? Isn't that unbelievable? Thank you very much. And this, you wait all this time and you get no questions. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Thank you very much, Ms. Baxter and Mr. Duff. So we'll bring up the departmental witnesses for BIA 2. And estimates, I guess.
Just the subs.
Just the subs. This is for just the subs, sorry. Yep. So so we're changing gears a little bit again. As a committee pursuant to Standing Order 81.5, supplementary estimates, 2018-19 votes 1A and 10A under the Department of Finance referred to the committee on Wednesday, October 24th, 2018. We have witnesses here from the Department of Finance to deal with those, answer any questions we may have on supplemental estimates. So from the Department of Finance, we have Ms. Yeskel, Associate Deputy Minister. Welcome back. Ms. Bess, Chief Financial Officer, and Ms. Denny, Director, Financial Management Reporting, Corporate Services Branch. Welcome, and I don't know if you have an opening statement or not.
I can, which will summarize just what
Okay, not a problem at all. Go ahead.
The supplementary estimates A reflect the net increase in planned statutory expenditures of $488.7 million. The items are displayed in the supplementary estimates for information purposes and will not be included in the appropriation bill. In addition, the estimates include $3.1 million in voted authorities under Vote 1 program expenditures. Given these increases, total proposed authorities to date for the department are $94.5 billion. If you like, I'll take you just through the major components of the expenditures. There's a $477.3 million increase for the Canadian Infrastructure Bank for capital and operating requirements identified in its corporate plan. There's an $11.4 million increase for the Canadian Securities Regulation Regime Transition Office for its operating activities in continuing support of the federal government's work to establish the cooperative capital markets regulatory system. And there's new funding requirements for Vote 1 program expenditures of a total of $3.1 million, and that consists of capacity funding for $2 million for the Tsimshian First Nations in relation to the divestiture of Ridley Terminals, a reprofile of $891,000 to continue work on the Cooperative Capital Markets Regulatory System Initiative, funding of $156,000 for the administration of the P3 Canada Fund, investment portfolio, and finally $99,196, which represents the department's portion of Budget 2018's funding envelope to address issues in pay administration, the Phoenix surge payment. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, we're open to any members who has a question. No questions? Mr. Jodian.
Could you, repeat the figure for Phoenix Pay Systems?
The figure for Phoenix?
Yeah.
That's $99,196.
That's $99,000 for
our department, and it was part of the surge funding to deal with some of the Phoenix issues.
Yes, yeah. Now, across the departmental budgets for supplementary estimates, what is the total cost allocated to Phoenix, given the size and
across
scope
all
of the departments?
departments?
Yeah.
I don't have that information on hand. Do you have it?
Budget 2018 provided $25 million in 2018-19 for Phoenix for the surge capacity, and this was to increase support services to employees with pay issues within the departments and agencies serviced by the Public Service Pay Center. So the $99,000 represents the departmental portion of that $25 million.
But that little more, Peter, if you want, then I'll go to Mr. McLeod.
Yep.
Mr. McLeod.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I didn't hear clearly. Was it the Tsimshian First Nations that you mentioned?
Tsimshian. Yeah. The Tsimshian? Oh, sorry, I thought you asked me the question.
Yeah, I was asking the question.
I'm sorry about that.
I do have a question in this area. I wanted to know what the purpose was for the consultations.
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing.
It says $2 million for the First Nations for consultations, right?
Yes.
And so what is the purpose for the consultations?
So as was announced recently, the Ridley terminals the decision was made to divest them, and this is capacity funding as part of the consulting process. The $2 million was provided to the Shimshin. Just find the.
Can I jump in?
Yes, this number 4.
Hi. So it's just to provide them with money, funding for financial and legal advice to support their participation in the consultation process for the divestiture of Ridley terminals.
Is there plans for other consultation? I know we have a lot of need in my riding where the First Nations are looking for money for consultation, they're looking for money for negotiations. Is there plans to do more than...
In relation to Ridley?
Along the same lines as this.
For that group? Sorry.
No. My mic's not on?
No, did you hear?
If you use your earpiece, you will hear him better.
Yeah.
That might be my problem. Yes.
This is a very hard room to hear in, so you pretty near need your earpiece. Go ahead.
So this is just for the supplementary estimates, and this funding is specifically for the Ridley terminals consultation, specifically as for future funding for consultations on other initiatives. I can't speak to that.
No money requested in this for other consultations in the supplementary estimates. Mr. Julian.
So the Ridley terminal consultations go beyond the Tsimshian First Nation. Where is that money found in the estimates?
That's not part of this supplementary estimate.
No, I understand, but the consultations go far beyond. So I'm just wondering where that money would be found in the supplementary estimates. If it's not in the Ministry of Finance, and we know that the federal government is spending beyond consultations with the Tsimshian, then where is that money to be found?
So you're saying for other groups that are involved?
For other groups, yeah.
It's probably in other government departments. We could get back to you on that question. I don't know that answer at this moment.
And then I will ask why is it, if the money is then spread out through a number of different departments, why is the Department of Finance assuming the funding for the Tsimshian First Nations for consultation? Trying to understand how that allocation worked. We've got a number of departments involved, money that has been allocated. How is it that the Ministry of Finance is allocating $2 million for consultations? I'm not questioning the validity of the consultations. I'm just trying to track the money.
We'll get back to you in terms of the tracking.
Okay.
In terms of Peter, on this question, do you want the allocation money for consultations across departments or just from finance? So,
well, I'd like it from across departments, but I'm also curious as to why a portion of it is allocated to the Ministry of Finance.
It's sometimes a government accounting thing, as I understand it, but so I think what Mr. Julian is asking, just so we're clear, on this consultation, if you can document the monies for these consultations, there will be some from Indigenous Affairs, and there will be some from other departments. If you could document it fully, so we have the final. So Mr. Julian has the final figure, and you can send that information to the clerk. Okay. Did you have another?
Funding for the administration of the P3 Canada Fund Investment Portfolio. Could you give us some more details about that? And again, I understand that there are allocations in other departments. So again, how is that? How is it allocated so that the $156,000 is allocated to finance?
So the $156,000 represents the custodial fees that are paid to CIBC Mellon for safekeeping, arrangement, and management of the investment portfolio. You will probably recall that P3 Canada fulfilled its mandate on November 2017, and this is the wind-up of the P3 Canada portfolio, and this is the amount of money left, and that has to be administered.
Thank you for that. There was money allocated to other ministries, though, right?
So that, again, we'd have to come back to see about other departments.
I can speak a little bit to that. So on the dissolution, all the investment portfolio was transferred to the Department of Finance. Now, infrastructure still was given a portion of money as well to finish their commitments on all the different projects that PPP had entered into prior to its dissolution. So on this case, we got the investment portfolio and its infrastructure that's providing the additional payments to deliver on all the commitments on PPP Canada. So.
Thank you.
So, any other questions over here? Greg?
I'm just wondering, further to the question from my colleague from the Northwest Territories, Mr. McLeod, I just want to know if you could just talk a little bit more about the Ridley terminus, just to give it just a little bit more detail. I'm not certain if I quite caught that as the purposes of the consultation for that part.
The Ridley terminals are being sold.
Right.
And there has to be a consultation around the sale of it, and a consultation was done, in fact, before the process was launched with the First Nation groups that could be affected in the area to see what the impacts could be.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, no further questions. Are we ready to go to a vote on supplementary estimates? Pardon?
On division.
Well, I'll read them out and we'll go on division. Shall vote 10A in the amount of 103 million, is that what it is? I'm trying to make out the rating here. What's the number on there, Eva? I don't have the estimates before me.
103,399,144.
Okay. Shall vote 10A carry in that listed figure? All those in favor? On division?
On division.
Shall vote 1A carry in the amount of $1 on division? Shall I report the votes and the supplementary estimates to the House?
On division.
On division. Okay, we're agreed. Thank you, folks, for Ms. Bess, you something you want to add?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to clarify for the first amount for vote 1A, it's just the supplementary estimates amount, 3146796 that we're voting on.
314?
3146796, 3,146,796.
Okay. We're agreed to amend that as such. I know you guys wouldn't want to spend any more money than the subs already in the subs. On division, we're agreed. All right. Thank you, folks, for appearing on the supplementary estimates. With that, we will actually adjourn ahead of time. Peter, you got a question? You look puzzled.
No. I just, if we've got some time, I have a filibuster I'd like to start.
Okay. All right. Meeting adjourned.